Welcome to the lecture 13. So we have discussed till now, like 1947, the Indian Independence Act has been passed. Okay. Now the Constituent Assembly and making of the Constitution will start for us. So what were the important points under under this assembly and making of the Constitution? We'll discuss those things. Okay. So Constituent Assembly and making of the constitution, making of the constitution. Okay, so the first important point, the idea of the Constituent Assembly was given by none other than Swaraj Party. Okay, in 1924. That was then after it continued with our Government of India Act 1935, through like whatever we promised, that was through like whatever that was continued through the cabinet mission plan that we saw, like this making of the Constitution and Constituent Assembly open to the cabinet mission plan. And most of the provisions that we considered under the Constitution that were taken from the Government of India Act 1935. And we have already discussed when we were discussing those acts, that most of the provisions that are present today are also were also present under the Government of India Act of 1935. Okay. Now, second important point, that the cabinet mission envisaged the establishment of a Constituent Assembly to frame a constitution for the country. That we have already discussed that through the cabinet mission, this Constituent Assembly framing was declared, establishment of constitution was declared. And member of the Constituent Assembly were to be elected by the Provincial Legislative Assemblies. So who the people who were going to frame the constitution were being elected by the provincial provincial legislative assemblies. Okay, the people who were going to form the Constituent Assembly, that they were being elected by through the provincial legislative assemblies, and they were being involved in making of the constitution. Okay. Now, so each province and each Indian state. Province. What do you understand by province and states? So let us first clear that province. Like in most of the videos, this term were there. I just overlooked it. So the difference between provinces and states, like a state were those regions which were directly controlled by the British government. Okay, and Indian states were those regions where rulers used to rule, or that was not directly ruled by the British government. Or some you can tell that even Indian states are princely states, like that. Those things were present, but in the provinces that were directly controlled under the British, like Madras, Bombay, and all. Okay, so each province and each Indian states were allotted seats in proportion of the population. So within the assembly, there will the seats will be allocated for each provinces and state, and those seats will be in the proportion of the current population of those regions. Okay, and the ratio will be of 1:1 million. Okay, if there is a one member will be there till 1 million. If 1 million cross, then there will be two members will be present into the legislative into the this Constituent Assembly. Okay, so the ratio that was maintained through as per the population of those regions, and the ratio will be maintained as the 1:1 million. So one people will be there to represent 1 million of people of that region. Okay, so the seats were certain were distributed among the main communities in each provinces, and the main communities that were formed, that were Sikh, Muslim, and general. Okay, Sikh, Muslim, and general. Okay, now important who were important members who were present under the formation of this constitution, who were the important people. So first, we should not remember the name of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Okay, we should not forget Dr. Rajendra Prasad. He was the committee on the rules of procedure and steering committee. We have to just remember the name. Who were the people who were directly involved in the committees of the Constituent Assembly? So he was the chairman. They were all the chairmen of separate committees. Okay, so the committee for the rules of procedure and steering committee was ruled by the Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Similarly, there were various committees, but we should remember the important names related to it. So another will be our Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, so he was actually looking to the finance and staff committee, ad hoc committee for the national flag, union constitution committee, and the union powers of committee. So those things were being looked by the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, now Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. He was looking into as an advisory committee for the fundamental rights, minorities, for the tribal and the excluded areas. He was looking into those aspects. Now, the chairman of the drafting committee of the constitution was none other than Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. Okay. So other will be the credential committee that was done by the Allah. The chairman of that committee, credential committee, was Alladi Krishna Swami Iyer. Okay, and the house committee was done by the Bhog Raju Pattabi Sitaram. In short, we call it as a B Pattabi Sitaram. So these were the important personalities that were the chairman of various committees uh, in the formation of the Constituent Assembly. Who were there? Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Dr. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Dr. B.R. Ambedkarji, Alladi Krishna Swami Iyer, and Bhaga Raju Pattabi Sitaramaiah or B. Pattabi Sita Ramaiah. Okay, so and uh, the important other things that we should remember, like the number of total members that were present for these committees and all formation. So the total number of members for the Constituent Assembly was 385. Okay, of whom 93 were representatives from the Indian states. They were representatives from the Indian states, and rest of the 292 were from the provinces. That was from the British India. That was from the British India, or it was from the provinces. Okay. After the partition of India, the member of this Constituent Assembly, this got removed. That was done through the Mountbatten Plan only. So 385 got reduced to 299. Okay, of whom 284 were actually present on the 26th November, of whom 284 were actually present on 26th November 1949. What happened on that day? On that day, our Constituent Assembly adopted the constitution which was drafted. The final reading of the constitution happened on this day, and it came into force on 26th Jan 1950. Okay, so on 26th Jan 1949, and signed the finally approved Constitution of India on that day happened. And the Constituent Assembly, which had been elected for undivided India, held its first meeting on like for before the drafting of the constitution. The first meeting which was held, it was on 9 December 9 December 1946. On 9 December 1946, first meeting was held regarding the formation of constitution. And after 2 years 2 years 11 months 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. After that, our constitution was finalized. That was on 26 November 1949. It was the first meeting happened, and after 2 years, 11 months, 18 days, this thing happened. Okay. Through this constituent assembly, elephant was adopted as the symbol of constituent assembly. Elephant was adopted as the symbol of constituent assembly. It and objective resolution was moved to the first session of the Constituent Assembly by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, which was adopted after the considerable deliberation and debate in Assembly that was happened on 22 January 1947. And the objectives that they were followed, like when the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru gave the first resolution about this session, uh, that we are that we were going to form the constitution for it, like whatever the task that the Constituent Assembly is going to make. So they were the few resolution objectives of the resolution were presented by the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. So first was to foster unity of the nation and ensure economic and political security, to have a written constitution and to proclaim India as a sovereign democratic republic. So one objective was to to make India as a unity, not a country of Hindu and Muslim. Okay, our constitution will be written one. Okay, our constitution will be written one. And another things that they said that we have taken from the Government of India Act 1935, that government will have a federal form of government, will have which will have center and states will be there. Another important point, to guarantee and secure justice, equality, freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, worship, vocation, association, action of all people of India should be provided. Another thing, it should be a special safeguard for the minorities, backward people, tribal areas, depressed, and other backward classes, and to maintain the integrity and the territory of the republic and its sovereign rights on land, sea, air, according to its justice and the law of civilized nations, and to attain the rightful honored place in the world and make it full and willing contribution to the promotion of the world peace and welfare of the mankind. So these were the overall objectives. So first, that we have to think that India will be a unity, constitution will be written one, India will be for federal form of government, that have a center and state will be there. Further, we have to take decisions. We should have a law for adequate safeguard for our tribal people, backward people. Further, we should have a guarantee to secure the justice, equality, freedom, belief, faith, worship, vocation, expression for all the Indian people. Okay. The principle of the constitution was outlined by the committees of this assembly. So, like there was a framework was given, like on what basis, what thoughts we should keep in our mind before forming a constitution. So these were the objectives. So these were the thoughts for which our constitution should fulfill these objectives. The principle of the constitution was outlined by the various committee of assembly, and there was a general discussion of the report of this committee. The this constitution assembly appointed drafting committee chairman with that was none other than Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. Okay, that was Bhimrao Ambedkar on the August 29, 1947, to scrutinize the draft of the text of the constitution prepared by the constitutional advisor B.N. Rao. Okay, and the drafting committee will be headed by the B.R. Ambedkar, as we have already discussed. The third and final reading that happened on 26 November 1949. We know about that. Okay. The provision related to citizenship, election, and provision of parliament, etc., were implemented with immediate effect from 26 November 1949. Like the provision related to citizenship, elections, and provisions of the parliament that were implemented, that were strictly started from the 26 November, but all the provisions that came into the action from the 26 January 1950. Yeah. So see, we have discussed that different types of constitution, but there were certain provisions like uh, consideration that we started to follow from 26 now 1949, certain things related to the parliament and all, but actually the constitution came into force from 26 January 1950. Okay, the 26th November is observed as the now, so 26th November is observed as the constitution day for us, or law day. We celebrate it as a constitution day or law day for India. As a 125th birth anniversary of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, this was declared on the November 2015. So we have to just remember, like 26th November is declared as the constitution day or law day for the India. Okay. So, and important, one more important, we'll complete it quickly. The different sources of the Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution was framed through different sources. It is not, it is compiled, the makers took the various positive aspects of the Constitution from different countries. Okay. So, and then we compile. So that's why our Constitution is very bulky. Okay. So the skeleton of the Constitution that was derived, it was derived from Government of India Act 1935. That's why we have seen while reading the Government of India 1935 that most of the provisions were the same that still exist today. Okay. So our and total out of 395 articles of the Constitution in India, the text of 250 articles are taken from the Government of India Act 1935 directly with some modifications. Okay. So we know like it has taken from the Government of India Act of 1935. Okay. Now we have taken certain things from Constitution of Britain. We'll discuss what are the countries we have taken, provisions we have taken. Then it was taken from USA. Then it was taken from Canada. Then it is taken from Ireland. It is taken from Germany. It is taken from South Africa. Then your France, which is famous for our principle of liberty, equality, and fraternity, and from the USSR. What is the thing that we taken from the Britain? It was like law making procedure, rule of law, single citizenship should be there, bicameral parliament should be there. So those things we took from the Britain. Constitution of USA, it gives us the like independence of judiciary should be there, judicial review should be there, fundamental rights, removal of Supreme Court judges, High Court judges, preamble, functions of president and vice president. Those things we took from the USA. And from the Constitution of Canada, we took like federation with a strong center. Center should be there to provide decisionary power to the center. Supreme Court advisory jurisdiction should be there. Then Constitution of Ireland provides us the DPSP, like directive principle of a state policy, method of presidential election and nomination of the members of Rajya Sabha by the president. And through the Germany, Weimar Constitution of Germany, we call it as, so provision concerning the suspension of fundamental right during emergency, how we can suspend the fundamental right of the people during emergency situation. And Constitution of Australia give us the idea of the we forgot to mention Australia is also there. So Constitution of Australia uh, gave us the concurrent list trade, related to the concurrent list trade and commerce. Then South Africa, it gave us the amendment like the majority should be there by the two-third majority of the parliament, and election of the member of Rajya Sabha on the basis of proportional representation. We'll discuss about the election by the type of different types of voting that happen in the parliament. We'll discuss later in the session in detail. Okay, don't worry about that. And the Constitution of France, we already have mentioned that it gave us the republican system, principle of liberty, fraternity, and equality. Okay, it is famous for France as well. Okay, and to the USSR, fundamental duties, idea of justice, and the preamble were taken from it. Preamble, like justice in the ideals of the justice preamble, and it is also taken from the no, it is taken from only from the preamble is only taken from the USSR. Okay, so this is all about in this lecture. We'll continue in the next session. Thank you.